Okay, and here we are. Hello and welcome. This is Tea with Jamie. I have my cup of tea right here. If you're watching the YouTube, you'll be able to see it. If you listen to the audiobook, or the podcast even, you'll be able to hear it. The audiobook's coming later, I swear. I think, I like to talk. That's just one of the things that I like to do. Anyone that kind of knows me in my personal life knows that I like to talk, and they know that I like to talk about very real things. Since I was a kid, I came from a bit of an interesting background, and I've always, felt like talking about what's right and what's wrong and how I feel, and I've always observed the world and the people around me and seen the harm that people can cause from not checking themselves and not knowing themselves and just acting on instinct constantly and never really trying to correct the mistakes and all that kind of stuff. So that leaves an unfortunate position for me because I'm left in a place where I want to grow. I want to build myself. I want to be as good as I possibly can in this limited time frame that we have on this earth, because that's what I believe. I believe that I have this one chance. Even if reincarnation is real, even if I go to heaven, all of those kind of things, what do they really matter in the grand scheme of helping my fellow beings of nature? Oftentimes when I talk about the way that I feel, it's always human orientated. It's always, as humans, we can be connected and we can contribute and we can progress. Even in modern days right now, progress has got a terrible connotation with it, with progressivism. And, even though that appeals to a large amount of people, there are a large amount of people that doesn't appeal to. And so I feel like we need to get away from these labels and we need to just start breaking life down into what it actually is and what is the meaning of life. Why am I here on this planet? And what can I do so that in my finite time of existence, when I do leave this plane, no matter what my beliefs are, go into the future, what do I leave behind? There's a few things that I know about life in general. There's really only a couple of things that I know. It's beautiful. Like, it is absolutely beautiful. Take away the concrete, take away everything else. Life without us, with us, is beautiful. It's rich. It's colourful, obviously. For some of us, who are colourblind, unfortunately, they don't see the full spectrum. But even for the blind and the colourblind, it's beautiful. Because we as human beings, we have this incredible ability to be able to feel and sense our surroundings. And we have all of this inner machinery which we don't fully understand, which allows us to directly connect to everything around us and experience it. And with those experiences come emotions. They come negative emotions, positive emotions, all kinds of emotions, and those are what are magic. I am a huge fantasy fan. I love fantasy literature. I've read The Wheel of Time 4 times. I've read the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I've read Lord of the Rings many, many times. I've read all of Brandon Sanderson. I've read all these books. I love fantasy and I love magic and I love all these imaginary things. But the one thing I'm reminded of constantly when I'm reading these books is that the magic exists in my world. Just this morning, I woke up really early. Unfortunately, I couldn't sleep that well, so I woke up really early and I couldn't get back to sleep, and the sun is just rising outside. And I remembered that yesterday when I woke up at 8 a.m. and I went outside, all of a sudden life was already going. I saw my sunflowers that I've been growing were swarmed by butterflies, and the hummingbirds were feeding from my hummingbird feeder, and it was magical. And this morning I woke up and I went and I sat outside with my 2 cameras. I have a Canon and I also have a film camera called a Mamiya RB67. And I sat outside and just waited for life to begin. And as the sun slowly started coming up, the butterflies became more active. They started flying around my garden. The hummingbirds were coming and scoping out the They were coming and scoping out the bird feeder, and I knew that I wanted to see it. I wanted to see it happen because it's magical. If we take a step back and we take a step back away from things like our phones and online and internet and computers and technology and cars and what our job is today and what we have to do, etc., we really find that when everything is boiled down, it is absolutely beautiful the way that everything functions, the way that everything looks. I've been growing these sunflowers from seed for maybe 6 weeks now, and they're beautiful. Every single time I look at them, they're beautiful. Every single time I look at them, they've changed. Sometimes when I'm looking at them, something else is interacting with them in a natural way, not knowing that they're being watched, and it's beautiful and it's magic. And if you really boil it down, it's truly magical the way that this world works. Now, take a sip of tea. So that's my point. We're in 2022. And why did I make this podcast? What am I doing? What do I hope to achieve? I'll tell you what I hope to achieve. I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy for quite a while now. As I say, I came from a pretty unique past. And, I come from England. You've probably been able to tell that from my accent already. But I come from England. I grew up in the north of England. And I had a very unique set of experiences which landed me in America. And I'm 34 years old at the time of recording this. And one of the things which I noticed in my late 20s, like around the age of 27, was the way that I was living life just wasn't serving me. I was feeling kind of swept away on a river. Like I had no life raft. I didn't know where I was going. I was constantly just operating on instinct. I had no idea about the inner side of me. I had no idea about how my experiences, etc., had affected me. And so I found myself at a point where I really had no choice except for go to therapy, because I wasn't benefiting the people around me, and most importantly, I really just wasn't benefiting myself. And so I started to go to therapy. And during therapy, I uncovered a lot of the things which are really meaningful to me, and what my purpose I feel on this earth is. And for a long time I felt unjustified in even trying to explain my purpose or what I wanted, because it felt like delusions of grandeur, and it felt like I had no place, and that there were better, more qualified people to be able to discuss that. So I never really even tried. I would try with my friends, and I would try with the people that I met. I would try with my relationships. I would try in all these different facets, but none of it was working. So through therapy, I discovered that I want to be able to share my perspective and reach out to those people who share a similar perspective, and also just try and change the trajectory of this world, add another voice, a more moderate voice, I suppose, even though, as I say, moderate even has a bad tone to it nowadays. I feel like with the internet in general, all these terms are used in order to box people up into little boxes, and people like to stay within those boxes. It's been proven time and time again. With the internet becoming, so vast as it is now, those boxes are easier to hide in. If you challenge those boxes can be closed on you, and so you have no way in. And I just felt as though I needed to add another voice, and that voice, as simple as it is be open and be kind. There's a lot of things in life that we don't understand. There's a lot of people with some wild opinions that we find it very difficult to understand, but it doesn't take away from the reality of the fact that those opinions exist. And if those opinions exist, then we have to deal with them. I find that a lot of people like to, as I say, hide in those boxes and not face the reality that if we're going to be a connected human race, or we're going to be a connected in nature with animals, our surroundings, climate change, it starts with us. It starts with personal responsibility. It starts with us looking deeper inside ourselves as to why these things are happening. Am I contributing? Am I contributing in a negative way? Have I got my head stuck in the sand? And I feel, constantly a lot of people have their head stuck in the sand, and it's just not helpful for anyone, and that's the reason why I'm making this podcast, because I have all these thoughts and feelings all of the time, and unfortunately my experience in general is that people don't want to hear it. And I'm not talking about constantly taking around my little soapbox and putting it up and being like, listen to what I want to say. I'm talking about the day-to-day interactions, from so many people who feel as though what they're doing is good and what they're doing is rightful and all this kind of stuff, when meanwhile ignoring just the greater picture. The greater picture is that we're here for a finite time and we want to progress. We want to progress the world. We don't want to progress ourselves individually. I mean, through individual progression, we progress the world too. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to leave the world a better place when we leave than when we arrived. That's my true philosophy. That's my only reason for my existence on this planet, is to, be the change that I want to see in other people. And I've worked very hard in my life to try and be a level-headed, comforting person to the people that I meet. And I'm fortunate in many ways that a lot of people have, told me that I make them feel that way, etc., etc. But, I suffer from my own problems sometimes because my feelers are set so wide because of my childhood, and my feelers are so wide. Sometimes it feels as though I just cannot shake the problems of the world. I remember when I was 18 and all this Iraq war stuff and Afghanistan war was going on, and my brother was over in Afghanistan, and I'm reading BBC News, and then I go to RT News, and then I go to US websites, and I learn and I gather all this information, but it was just on my shoulders. It was on my shoulders all the time, as if I was personally responsible for everything that was happening in the world, and it's just not a healthy place to be, especially if you don't have somewhere to vent it out. And so, podcasts are quite a scary idea because, I have a lot of opinions, and I know that, if this takes off or if even, 100 people listen to it, I'm going to have some dissenting voices and people that don't agree with me. And as I say, the internet is a scary place, and there's a lot of people really, really ready to try and hurt people. And, I feel as though I'm in a place, and I have been in a place for a good while, where I can take that with grace and, as I say, try and affect people and try and change people and change people's minds. Because I believe that we need to calm down. I feel with the rise of social media, everyone feels like it's their own TV show now. I know that is said so much, but it's a reality. And we're not in our own TV show. We're in a worldwide TV show. There's not United States, just United States. There's not just England, just Europe. There is a whole world. There are tribes, there are civilizations, there are, there's sea creatures, there's plants. The more and more science comes out, the more we realize how connected everything is. And I just don't feel as though the voices out there are really reflecting the fact that everything is a part of everything. And I feel as though if you really pay attention to what is the most prominent voice and the most prominent thing happening in our society right now, it's capitalism going to the absolute extreme. We have massive environmental damage. There's just a simple fact of the matter. You cannot burn that much fossil fuel and consume that much without having dire consequences. I used to smoke cigarettes. I also used to smoke weed. I used to smoke weed inside my house. So I'd smoke weed with cigarettes inside my house, and before I knew it, on everything, on every little part of my house, is like a fine dust. The paint starts getting a little bit more grimy. If this is one person smoking a couple of joints a day in his house, and this is what's happening to my surroundings, what's happening in the world? I live in Los Angeles. This place is a fucking concrete nightmare. Excuse my language. But it's a concrete nightmare. And I know so many dissenting voices will be like, well, what else do we have? Well, I mean, this is great. I like this the way it is. I'm sorry, but I cannot say for a single second that anyone is happy in a city that is just concrete blocks, broken roads, refuse everywhere, homeless people spread throughout the whole city. You can't be happy with that. If you're happy with that, then you're on the track which is just absolute personal independence with no consequence. And as I say, that doesn't follow my philosophy. My philosophy is we leave the world better than we came into it. You know, if you believe in religion, if you believe in all that kind of stuff, how many Christians do I know who are good people? They're good people. They're good people to the people that they know. But in their everyday and immediate life and the actions that they choose, you know, and the cars that they buy and the values which they ascribe to and present and push and don't think deeper into, how can you be a good Christian? How can you be a good person when you're not being responsible for your own personal actions? I just don't see that that's a reality, but I do see lots of people getting swept up in their own goodness, in what they do personally, and as soon as you bring up something which might challenge their viewpoint, generally they'll stick their head in the sand and pretend it didn't exist. And I just find that happens so often. Like, I'll just make one example. There was this girl that I was talking to, really, really amazing girl, super smart, Christian girl. She seemed, you know, like a very kind person. And, you know, I can be a little polemic in my viewpoints sometimes because, you know, sometimes polemicism, it kind of creates tension. And sometimes from tension, you get truth. You know, that's just, you know, either truth or people put their heads in the stand even more. But, you know, in my experience, I have got a lot of truth from tension sometimes. And I'm talking to her about dogs. I want to have a dog one day. Right now, I just don't feel like I have the money and just don't feel like it would be responsible. I'm still by myself in America. If something happens in England and I need to go back, I don't have the support structure to put my dog's responsibility on someone else. So, yeah, I was talking to her about dogs. I really want a dog, etc. And I'm pretty crazy about the fact that I don't believe dogs should ever be sold. Like, I just don't agree with it. This is another huge point of my podcast, which I'm going to try and put across. There are instantaneous emotional reactions that I have inside myself, which I can consciously, in real time, notice if I'm connected with myself. So when I talk about, I will never buy a dog, there is a voice inside of me that is like, but I really like golden retrievers, but I really like pugs, but it would be really nice to just get a puppy chihuahua from somewhere that I know it's healthy and it's raised well, and raise that chihuahua. You know, there's all these voices and wants that are in me, but this is what I want to really say is the ability of human beings, and the most special aspect of us is to be able to listen to our thoughts in real time, like feel our emotions and analyze them in real time and judge whether they're good or bad. And so when I want to buy a dog, I see puppy mills, I see breeders, but not only that, I also see the thousands upon thousands and thousands of dogs, cats, and other animals which are put down every single year. That's a life taken, thousands of lives taken every single month. Yet I still have the gall to sit here and say, yeah, but puppy farms are actually really good. No, it's not good. It's not good. There's no need for it. There's no need for it. There's what we want and there's what we should do. And there's also a middle gap. There's a middle zone between those 2 points, which is find a dog that is adopted. You know, find a puppy that has been put up for adoption. There are dogs, cats, and animals found all of the time, and there is no reason for us to buy them. You know, this isn't some Peter stuff like save all the animals, bleeding heart stuff. This is, for me, this just feels normal. This feels like a normal thing to think and feel. If you're even slightly a good person, you would never buy a dog. I'm not saying if you've bought a dog, you're a bad person. I'm not saying if you buy a dog, you're a bad person. I'm just trying to say we have to be better in every action that we're trying to take. We have to be way better than we are. Look where we have got as a society right now, acting the way that we do, with an independent mindset, so focused on our own survival, which is completely understandable within such a detrimental, extreme capitalist society. I'm not super anti-capitalist, but we have to be, we have to be real right here, and we live in extreme capitalism right now. We don't live in a balanced system where the people that work really hard rise to the top and have an extra luxury in life, which I feel is fine. If it's going to make everything else work, I feel that's fine. But that's not the reality that we're living in. We're living in a reality where hundreds of people have billions and billions of dollars just sitting doing nothing. Meanwhile, society is crumbling on the bottom layer. I don't believe personally, because a person is born, they've made the wrong choices, or they've just followed the path that they're on, that they should just be forced to live at the bottom of society with no help, while the majority of society sits back in the lap of luxury. I find it incredibly hard to stomach. When I was born, I didn't know I was going to be born in England, for example. Like, my country has been, it's one of the first countries to really, create like the world economy and industrialization and colonialism, etc., along with Spain and all that other good stuff. And tea. Let's not forget tea. But yeah. I come from a country which, helped create these extreme systems, and I grew up in that country. I grew up in a working class situation. I grew up in a situation where my mum was a teacher, my stepdad, he worked the night shift at like a detention center or something. They both smoked 40 cigarettes a day, and my stepdad drank a load of alcohol and all this kind of stuff, and we had Sky TV, and we went on holiday once a year. But I'll tell you what, by the time I was 12 years old, that caught up. It caught up, and all of a sudden, we had to sell our house. All of a sudden, we had to sell our car. All of a sudden, my mum's mood is just gone. She's sad. She's kind of depressed. My stepdad is even angrier than he's ever been before. And this is all... You could blame my mum, and you could blame my stepdad, for mishandling their money and not living within their means. But I'm sorry, I think it's very unfair to tell people that they should live within their means. Meanwhile, other people are just living in a lap of luxury. I think in England it's especially bad. I was just reading a bloody article today, which is, anyone that earns over, 60k, 50k, is 50% tax. Do you understand the world that we're living in right now? Energy prices, food prices, the cost of living, children, having children and raising the children, giving children equal opportunity as like other wealthy children. It's a very stressful environment for parents, and it's a very stressful environment for people as well. And 50k, 60k, it might seem like a lot, but it's nothing in comparison to these people that are pulling in multiple hundreds of thousands every single year. And that's not even the largest group. There are people that are pulling in millions and millions and millions and buying yachts. And you get people on social media applauding them, being like, yeah, because they want to live that kind of life. But it needs to stop. Like, there has to be some kind of balance. The amount of times that I've had conversations with people and they're like, oh, well, the Civil War will come soon and all that kind of stuff. It feels like the only way that we will get mass societal change is if something terrible happens, which just changes the global mindset completely. And right now we're in a global mindset where it's about me, it's about my wealth, it's about my status. It's taking what I said earlier, which is my personal philosophy, which is I have a finite time on this earth. And it's like, I have a finite time on this earth. I need to use up as much as I humanly possibly can. What is that? What are you going to do? Like, would I walk into a village and just set it on fire and then leave? That's how it feels. That's how it feels like everyone is justifying everyone doing. We've got to be kinder. We've got to be more accepting. We have to understand that we have to band together. Firstly, that's just the most important thing. We're 7 billion people on this earth, and the people that are in power are, in their hundreds. And if we all stood up at the same time, my God, the change that would happen so quickly would be astronomical. There has been countless examples of community help throughout history. Where communities have banded together and helped another community. Like look at the Ukraine war right now. The world, dove in to help Ukraine protect their sovereignty against Russia. Imagine that, but on a scale of helping some of the most unfortunate people in life. And so many people would say, yeah, but they made their own graves, so they should lie in it. But what kind of mentality is that, when just a tiny amount of the resources that we have that are put into those more worse off communities would create a situation where we can actually, we can all live better. It will help us all. It helps us all. And if we help drug addicts, it helps us all. I grew up in a situation where I grew up in a kind of rough town, so if I ever went out and I walked on the streets, etc., and went out to play some football with my friends, I'm going to go play some football. I'm going to go climb on the climbing frame, like all these kind of innocent things, and I'm down on the climbing frame, and all of a sudden, this little kid from different part of town walks up to me and he's like, "Shaman, you're fucking looking at us like," and nuts me in the face, which is headbutts me in the face and pops my lip. I'm 8 years old. Would that kid be there if his family had had more help, if the world wasn't the way that it was? I honestly believe maybe some would still be there, but on the grand scale of things, there'd be a lot less of it. And the beauty of this kind of stuff is that it rolls on. You help one person, you help two people, you help hundreds of people in the most destitute situations, and you try and change their mind and grow their philosophy and connect them more to the human experience, connect us more to nature. And you can only do that by showing them without caveats, without expecting anything back, showing them that humankind can be good to some of the people that haven't been treated very good. And that is how you start to change things on a mass global scale. And hey, you can start getting into conspiracy theories about how governments, etc., and corporations are constructed to keep us down, to keep us in those boxes, and to keep us in fighting amongst each other, etc. Because if we did globalize as a human race, then the power that a few people have taken, it just wouldn't be worth as much, because we could act en masse, and acting en masse creates mass change a lot of the time. But yeah, so we're in this. That's why I'm making this podcast. That's why I'm saying this stuff. I'm not doing it to get out there and to get fame. I'm doing it to release some of the thoughts and feelings that I have, because this is how I live. Am I doing anything? Am I volunteering? Etc., etc. No, I'm not. Probably for the same reasons as many other people, is because I don't have the resources. The time that I have that is a resource is occupied by survival 99% of the time, on top of other mental health stuff, which I constantly have to be aware of and take care of. And it's not an excuse. But it's also, there's a barrier of entry a lot of the time to this stuff. It's not as commonplace as it should be. And I do believe that if I was given an opportunity to help, i.e. if anyone's listening to this podcast and they live in LA and there's something which they need help with, and they know a place to point me, then I'll go and I will help. It's just the way that I am. I need someone to directly talk to me and directly bring me, so I know that my effort and my resources are being used well. Because I think, as many people feel in this world, sometimes I don't know whether the resources that I have are being used or if they're being manipulated, because we live in a situation where there's so much control and so much misconception and so much mirage, Sometimes I don't know if I'm helping or if I'm hurting, or if my time is best used there, or if it's best used stewing on my philosophies and spouting them off on a podcast while drinking a cup of tea and sweating because I've got to turn my AC off to be able to record it. So this is what my podcast is. It's going to be me talking. It's going to be me talking about some of the things I've read in the week. It's me talking about how I feel. It's me talking about some of my experiences through my own lens. Hopefully I'll start to get feedback from people, and I'll start to get questions, and I'll be able to, expand even further on what I think and what I believe. I'm going to maintain this now pretty much for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be here. And I hope to grow myself, and I hope to get myself into a position where I can affect and help as many people as I humanly can, because we need it. We need the help. We need the help. There are so many beaten, downtrodden people of all races, religions, classes, etc., etc. There are just so many, and I don't think that goodness in this world can ever really exist as long as we're all ignoring it all the time. So thank you for listening to my first episode. This is Tea with Jamie, and it's actually been incredibly fun to do this, and I hope I haven't annoyed too many of you. I'm going to finish this cup of tea, and hey, I'm probably going to go for a run or do some exercise, because if there's one little piece of advice that I can give you all, it's get your heart rate up. Just get your heart rate up. Get your heart rate up by silly dancing. Get your heart rate up by skipping. Get your heart rate up by doing anything, walking up a set of stairs or jumping on the spot. Just get your heart rate up. And it's the first step to having some solid thoughts. And I wish you all the best. I will always be wishing everyone the best. As a human race, on a natural planet, animals, insects, everything, we're all connected. And let's make this world a better place. Thank you very much.